I'm Janda from the Enviro House, which is pictured behind me, and hope to get back there soon. And John Wakowiak is presenting this morning on tree pruning. John's been doing this with us for several years now, and he is a forester. I once said retired forester, but he told me you're never retired. And he also works for Tacoma Power now. And so he will be presenting, and he'll tell you a little more about his background when we actually get into the presentation. I'm going to wait a little more for some folks to get in. We have 40 of you signed up, so we'll wait for the majority to get here. While we're waiting, I'm going to have John tell you about the Grit City Tree Program that Tacoma Power and the City of Tacoma and some others. I think we have some grant money helping on that, maybe, that will recognize those folks. And then I will be putting some things in the chat, John's information, mine, websites, and where you can get upcoming information and view recorded webinars, including one that we're going to have in the presentation. And then other than that, if this is your first time in a webinar, I think most people by now have probably done some, but if you hover over the bottom of your screen, you should see a bar that has a place where you can put questions in the Q&A. We will do a couple polls, and there's also a chat feature. I encourage you to use the chat instead of the Q&A if that's easy for you to do, because the chat is recorded. So I will have that information, and I can provide some of that back to you if you need to. You will be muted, your cameras will be off, and once we get started, we'll share the screen and John will do the presentation. So John, I will pass it to you to give a little information about yourself and the Grit City Tree Program. We've got about a third of the people in here now so far.
Okay. All right.
And I'm going to go up here while we're doing that and make sure that you're a co-host. So,
okay,
you need to do.
All right. It looks like I am. All right. Well, good morning. My name is John Wakowiak. I am a conservation operations manager with Tacoma Power. I work in customer energy programs. I work in conservation work, energy conservation, renewable energy. And we do lots of different programs, and you might be familiar with things like heat pumps and insulation and windows and business type projects, but we also have a number of other programs where we partner with organizations, and we're partnering right now with the City of Tacoma Environmental Services on a shade tree coupon program where you can get a coupon for up to $30 off up to 3 trees at participating nurseries. There'll be more information as we get closer to the end. And then also, as Janda noted, there's a Grit City Tree Program, and I wish I could say Tacoma Power is a big partner of that, not currently, but we are very supportive of it. Grit City Trees is an idea where a group of neighbors get together and designate public areas, generally the parking area, the area between the sidewalk and the curb, where some trees can be planted, and they're made available at no cost, but there has to be like a community support, neighborhood support for, I think, up to 10 to 12, and there's an application process. So just if you ever have questions about trees and programs within the City of Tacoma, just go to the cityoftacoma.org/trees, and that will take you to my partners there in Environmental Services Urban Forestry Program, and it details all the various programs, lots of great information. So just want to let you know that that information is there. A little bit quickly about myself as we wait for a few more folks to come in. I also am a certified arborist and a certified forester. So what does that mean? Well, generally an arborist is somebody that works on individual trees, which could be trees in your yard or in a community. And we're looking at kind of individual tree care. And there is an organization called the International Society of Arboriculture that is the certifying group. And so you have to pass a test, keep maintained standards. So to be a certified arborist is a very high credential and one that most of us want to maintain and work hard to utilize. And then the certified forester. So difference between an arborist and a forester, it's fuzzy, except that really a forester probably is looking at the trees in more of a group or setting. So the city of Tacoma or an area of Tacoma could be considered a forest, or you're thinking of groups of trees or forest land. And so that's how I always kind of differentiate the two. My background has been forestry and arboriculture. Sometimes you'll hear the term urban forestry tossed around. That's kind of where the two mix, okay? And that's really where the forester and the arborist kind of come together. And so we're going to talk today about pruning trees. We're going to talk about why and how and several other things, and then we'll give you lots of opportunities for questions and answers towards the end, and feel free to use the chat at any time and we'll make sure we cover them. Janda, you think we're ready now?
I think we should go ahead and start. We have about half the people in here. Okay. One other thing that I wanted to mention, which we will mention again at the end, but if you are excited about going out and starting to prune today, when you get through with this webinar, and if you don't have adequate tools at home, depending on how close you are to downtown Tacoma, check out the Tacoma Tool Library. You can see their inventory online. They have good tools that you can borrow. But on Saturdays, they're only open until 1 o'clock. They're located in the second floor, accessible from the back of the Tacoma Public Library downtown, the old Carnegie building. So I'm going to put that information in the chat so you can check that out as well. John will cover tools, the good tools to use, and what kind you need to have if you need to buy them. So we will begin. Go ahead and start. The webinar is being recorded, so you can go back after we conclude. It will take probably a week or a little more to get it up online, but the city's YouTube channel has all the recorded webinars that we've done. So this one will be up there, and I will put the link for that in the chat also. So, okay, John, take it away. Okay. And I will pop up if we do have questions and you see me on camera, that means there's something that we need to answer, and we'll get back to it later. Okay. Trying to mute my video.
So Jada, can you see the screen? Can you see the tree pruning effectively and safety screen? Oops. Janda, can you see the screen? Okay. Okay. Janda, you're muted. Can you just confirm you can see the screen, please? Okay, all right, thank you. All right, I just wanted to make sure everybody could see the screen. It's one of those things when you use technology, you're showing the screen, but you're not sure everybody can see it. So I want to make sure. So again, we're going to talk about tree pruning, doing it effectively and safely. Janda, do you want the first poll question, please?
I'll pull that up. I'm still trying to get, I think we messed up the settings when we practiced yesterday. I'm trying to get my video off camera, but let me pull up this poll while we're.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to have to launch the first one that we didn't do about how did you hear about this, and then I will.
Yep, that's fine.
I will let that one.
There we go. Okay. So I'd really appreciate if you take a few minutes or take a minute or two just to complete the poll. It's great to see all the people joining this morning. And it would be so much more fun to be in person with everybody, but this is a nice, neat way to do it. And luckily at the moment, it's not, so it's even better. But looks like we're getting a lot of people. Looks like the Facebook and Enviro News are really effective. So that's great.
Good.
All right.
Okay, so I'm going to end that and then
Okay.
I'll share the results.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so that's what we have here.
Okay.
Stop sharing, and then I'll see if we can get to the second one.
We just want to make sure everybody's on their toes here, getting awake this morning. It's got their coffee in them. Okay.
Okay, so there's the second one. This is the one we really want to know.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Still
Okay.
have a few people answering.
Yeah.
About
Cool.
half of you have answered. Maybe some of the rest of you can get in there.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. All good reasons. Good. All good reasons.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go into the program real quick, Jan, if we can. If you want to do that
Okay.
poll.
Share the results. Or that. And there you go.
Okay.
And I may have to stay up here in the corner if I can't figure out how to get me off, because when I tried, I stopped the video.
Okay. Yep. Don't do that. Okay.
Okay.
Can you remove the poll now?
Is it still up?
Yep. On my screen it is.
I took it off on mine.
Okay.
Gone now?
Nope.
Well,
Let me see if I can just wipe it out. Well, I wiped it out, so we'll move forward. Okay. Okay. Let's see here. All right. So I guess the first thing I want to do is some myths out there, and I think it's appropriate to think about myths when you think about Halloween. You know, all the bewitching ideas that are going to come up here, and ghosts and all these other things that we think about during this time frame. But one of the first ones is people think, well, it's really hard to do to prune a tree. And it's really not. And we're going to talk to make it straightforward for you, how to work it, what it should look like when the process is complete. My gosh, I'm afraid to do it. If I prune it wrong, I'm going to kill my tree. Okay. It's pretty rare to be able to kill your tree pruning it. You might hurt it, but you won't kill it. So we're going to talk about a way to minimize the injury that you might do to it. You don't do it at the right time. I can only prune in the winter. The answer is no. You can really prune basically during any time of the year, but there's one period of time we're going to talk about where I don't recommend that you prune. And you still have to treat your cut surfaces with tree paint. That's an old pruning myth. We do no longer recommend putting paint or any type of sealant on the pruning wound, mainly because what that does is that puts moisture next to the wood. And welcome to the land of the Northwest. When you have wood and moisture, you get rot. And so we don't want that to happen. So that's the first thing, just a little bit, kind of getting rid of some pruning myths. What we're going to cover today, we're going to talk about tree growth and a little bit reasons why we prune. People talked about some of their ideas and reasons they want to. We're going to talk about the branch bark ridge. We're going to talk about how you don't get ripped off, 3 steps to success, what needs to go in the right union. And you can tell I'm a man of the 60s and the 70s. Okay, we're going to fear the tree topper, not necessarily the reaper. The best time to prune, the right tools, and pruning without a ladder in case you have to get up there and reach a little farther. So the first thing to keep in mind is we have to have an understanding of how trees grow, because how they respond to injury is really important for us to minimize damage to the tree. Trees have 3 areas that they grow. They grow at the top, at the end of the limbs or branches. The upper part of the tree to a forester and an arborist is called the crown. And so you'll hear us use that term crown or the live branches. Of course, they grow out and fat. That would be the trunk and the larger branch. And then they grow down underneath in the root system And really, one of the most important parts about the root system is really the fine roots right at the tip, those little tip type roots. If you've ever dug one up when you've been digging in your yard, those fine roots are the area really where the moisture and the nutrients are all sucked up. So understanding how they grow will really help us benefit the tree with doing some pruning. The other part that's important is the terms that I want to show you. When you look at a big tree, which is just sort of a cross section of a tree, the majority of the tree in the center of the tree is really not live wood. It's just really kind of heartwood that allows moisture to go up and down the tree. It's more like big straws in there. The real part that's really alive is this region where that arrow is, which is called the cambium. It's just underneath the bark of the tree. And it's a really important area because what it does, it's an area of woody cell growth. It's an area where the tree grows wood and where it grows bark. And that area is an area we're going to do everything we can in our pruning effort not to injure. That is an area which will help the tree, what we're going to use the term seal around an injury. Okay, so keep that term cambium fresh in your mind. So we talked about, we asked people what were the reasons they wanted to prune trees, and a lot of people put a lot of the information we have on this one down. Obviously safety and security. You want to make sure the branch doesn't fall on somebody or damage your property. I look at a lot of places where people have large trees and they're worried about trees falling or things of that sort, and you can prune to minimize that risk. You concentrate the growth of the tree on the best branches. So think about your garden or a forest where you only have so much area for growth. And if there's too much area kind of competing for it, it hurts all of them. So you can concentrate the growth on the best branches. You do it for tree health. You do it for flowering and fruiting. You do it to reduce conflicts and clearance. So the clearance above the sidewalk and the curb, so trucks don't tear your branches off or somebody doesn't run into it. I have a neighbor down the street. I've bumped my head 4 times in the last 2 weeks on one branch. We're going to be talking to them. I'm going to offer to prune this one branch for them because it's just at the right height where my noggin gets it every time. And then repairs. So those are just sort of the things that, can be there, but I heard people talk about view. I talked about improving appearance. All those are the right reasons to do it. So there's some golden rules we're going to talk about. And there are kind of 5 golden rules to pruning. The first one is, again, remember we use that term crown, which is the upper part of the tree, the live branches. Okay, you never want to prune more than 33% of the living branches at any one time, aka 1/3. The reason if you prune more than 1/3 of the branches at any one time, you put the tree under stress. And underneath the bark are what they call advantageous buds. So if the tree gets stressed, they sprout just because the tree is needing energy, in this case, the form of leaves and surface area to do photosynthesis. So going more than 1/3 at any one time will put the tree under stress and probably result in sprouting. So you can see in this case here, we pruned much of the lower branches on this tree, but it doesn't mean this is the way it is forever. And you don't do it every year, like I'll do 1/3, 1/3, and 1/3. Well, that's not the plan. The plan is you really have to look at what branches you need to prune and the timing. So golden rule 1, never more than 33% at any one time. Okay, golden rule number 2. Okay, always prune back to another branch. So you don't just lop it off at the end. You actually prune back to another branch, whether it's the main branch or the main trunk, but you always go back. And that branch that you're pruning back to should at least be at least 1/3 of the size of the branch. So in this example here, we have overhead utility wires. This is not uncommon, but what happens is we reduce the crown height of the tree by pruning the branches back to another main branch. And that allows to get the clearance without destroying the form of the tree. So always prune back to another branch. Golden rule number 3, okay? Focus your pruning on damaged or crossing branches. That's the first one to do. Obviously, things that are hanging down, growing straight up, crossing, rubbing, broken, all those are really easy ones to see and to work with. So that's golden rule. So one of the things that we want to keep in mind when we're pruning is wherever a branch meets another branch, or the main stem or trunk, as maybe we call it, there is a branch collar. And you can see in this diagram that the branch collar isn't what I'm going to call perpendicular, it's at an angle in most of the cases. So it's sort of a swelling where the branch meets the other branch. There's a small swelling there, and you actually can see it, and it's easy to point out. Another clue on where that is, and you heard the term branch bark ridge. Usually the branch bark is actually raised a little bit right in there, and that is our branch bark ridge. And what that is basically the branch connecting to a notch, and a little bit of bark is getting pushed up and away. So when you find that branch bark ridge, right below it is the branch collar, okay? Golden rule number 4, okay? We are going to do everything we can to protect that branch bark ridge and that branch collar. That is going to help the tree to seal. So again, I use the term seal. So when I am pruning with my gloves, even with gloves, I tend to hurt myself. It's just a given. That's just who I am. Luckily, I have the ability to regenerate new tissue over my injury, and it's called healing. Well, trees don't heal, they seal. And what they do is they grow around the branch, and you'll see that callus wood kind of grow around the injury and eventually seal it. So it never goes away, it just gets sealed. And so our effort is, if you remember that term cambium that we talked about, well, we want to do everything we can where that branch bark ridges and that branch collar to protect that cambial growth so it will seal around the injury as quick as possible, okay? Right. So one thing I want to tell people really before the equipment comes out, there are some basic concepts that you just obviously need to keep in mind with those golden rules. Each cut has the potential to change the tree forever. So as a forester and an arborist, before I make the cut, I look at it really from a distance, I look at it close, and I'm kind of planning ahead each pruning cut as I'm moving forward. So if I make this pruning cut, I'm thinking 3 cuts down the line. What are the other 2 I'm going to do? What will the tree look like? So it's kind of like the famous line, measure twice, cut once. So take a good idea of what you want to do. Unfortunately, once the branch comes off, you can't glue it back on, okay? Gorilla glue does not work on that. The second thing is basically removing the branches and limbs affects the ability of the tree to do what it wants to do, which is gather sunlight for food production or photosynthesis. So you heard me talk about not removing more than 1/3. So you want to keep that in mind. Our goal is to make the tree feel strong and healthy. And we're doing this to improve the tree and not to reduce the tree's ability to grow and survive. Large limbs. So branches that are really large can impact the form and the geometry affecting the tree. So unfortunately, there are times when we're dealing with trees where, you know what, we should have pruned the branch 20 years ago, but now it's so big that if we took it out, we would lose over the 1/3. So maybe there's different ways we can do with it to minimize its growth and its condition, all those things. So just because it might have needed to be removed now because it was not the best one at the time, it may not be the time to remove it because it's too big and it would take too long to seal over. And the other part is you can't really just kind of just start removing branches. And so unfortunately, sometimes when you are a neighbor and you happen to be an arborist and forester, your advice is often valued at zero because, oh, it's just John down the street. Okay. But I also watch people just take loppers, and for who knows for what inspired them to just start lopping branches off. And I know they're not thinking about what they're doing to the form of the tree. And then they come back and say, oh, John, what should I have done? Would have been nice to have talked to them before they did it. But the concept is you really need to be thinking why you're doing it and following those golden rules. Because again, you can't reattach the branches once you've removed them, and you can really impact it tremendously. Okay. I'm going to stop after this question or this point. Any questions in the chat? But I use the term don't get ripped off. So there is a famous forester, what I'm going to call barbet. Okay. One you cannot lose. And the concept is I can prune a branch off of a tree in one cut. Okay. In other words, I can take that branch, I can remove it in one cut. Well, you know what? You sure can. But the problem is the wood in a tree is full of tension. And when you start cutting and working your way to the end, guaranteed that it will rip and tear. And that ripping and tearing, as you can see in the side right photo, basically injures the cambium of the tree, and it doesn't like seal around the injury completely. So the longer it takes to seal, more likely internal decay gets started. So we want to do everything we can not to rip off the branch, because that's the concept of trying to protect the cambial growth around that branch collar. So do you want to see if there's anything? I want to look real quick if there's anything in the chat. Okay.
We don't have anything so far. One
Okay.
question about fruit trees, but we will be doing fruit tree pruning next weekend. So
Okay.
I'll talk more about that at the end.
Okay. Yeah, and we can talk about pruning maples as well. So as we get farther along, we will do it. Okay, cool. All right. Just want to not lose anybody there. All right. So let's see here. There we go. So here's the final golden rule of pruning, and that is you need to follow a 3-step process to success. So again, this all kind of comes back to help the tree respond to the injury and protect the branch collar. And also protecting that branch collar means we're protecting the cambial area of the tree to seal. So what you do is you follow a 3-step process. So in this case here, we have identified just kind of maybe a couple inches away where this pruning saw is going in is where the branch collar is. We're going to make an undercut in that branch and relieve the tension. Live wood is full of tension. It twists and it bends, and it has to because obviously there's moisture in it. It has to survive the wind and other things and the weight of leaves. And so by making an undercut in the branch about 3 to 6 inches away from the branch collar means that we take the tension out of the wood, okay? The second one is we go above that area after we've made an undercut and we remove the branch. So by doing that, we've taken all the weight off of that limb, and that allows us to then protect our branch collar. And then we go to the branch collar and we remove that stub. So you can see that 3-step process allows us to protect the branch collar, allow the tree to successfully seal around the injury. It also allows us to be able to just do the job really quick and clean. So in this case, with this handsaw, that worked just really nice. Even when you use small hand tools, you should be always looking for the branch collar. And again, the branch collar where that dotted red line is just a swelling where a branch meets another branch. And by protecting it, we are actually allowing the tree and that limb to seal around the injury. So you don't need necessarily to have a 3-step cut, but you might want to. You might want to reduce the weight before you get to the actual branch collar, okay? So, Chand, I think I have a poll question maybe next for you if you want.
Okay, that would be, what is your experience? There we go. Can you see that? I changed that one that says looks kind of sad because initially I had it looks really awful, but
Oh,
I decided
that's all right.
that was kind of mean.
Yeah.
And I took out the one that said somebody else pruned for me and it looks even worse. So,
Okay. I know where that one's coming from. Okay.
so if that's your case, you can put that in the chat.
Yeah.
And for the person that's phoning in that can't see the polls, those end up kind of being screenshots. Those don't end up in the final version either, in the recorded version. So we're basically just asking if you've pruned before, what kind of experiences you've had, and if you have problem trees and that sort of thing.
Yeah. Excellent. Okay. Cool.
All right, so I will end the poll. I think we've got almost everyone that's in here. If there's anybody else that wants to answer, jump in. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. Show the results.
So a lot of people have done it before, but just really want to make sure they're doing it right. And that's,
okay.
I think that's always the concept. You know, you can always learn to do things better as you try. I have to be open with you that every time I prune a tree, I learn a little bit more each time because they're very, very unique organisms, and the way they grow and where they're located all can be very unique. So techniques have to adapt to the actual organism. So cool. All right. All right.
So that's off your screen now, right?
It is off of mine now. Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So I want to talk a little bit about safety. I know it sounds silly that a pair of hand pruners or a pruning saw can hurt you. I am a perfect example. It happens all the time. So the idea about wearing eye protection, or if you have glasses, obviously that are close to your face, work really great, but safety goggles, they're sawdust, and the sawdust is very fine. It floats around in the air. And if you ever had sawdust in your eyes, it's painful. So obviously eye protection is critical. We only have 2 sets of eyes. You want to really protect them. Gloves. I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to hold them up probably. You won't see them here on camera, but I have a pair of hand gloves that I need to replace annually. And every time I look at them, I'm amazed how many times I have saved my fingers and my hands and other things from the tools because I'm doing it quickly. Sometimes I'm putting my hands where I can't see 100%. So good pair of leather hand gloves are really important. Staying on the ground. I would hate to tell you the number of people that get hurt falling off ladders. I know sometimes it's necessary. We've all had to clean gutters, not a fun thing or task to do, but staying on the ground means you have stability, you can use your tools, and the chances of falling are really greatly, greatly reduced. Using the right tools for the job. Sometimes you have to use tools that are sharp, but you also need to make sure that the tool you're going to use is going to work right. So the example of kind of, hammering a nail with a screwdriver, the end of a screwdriver, not the smartest idea, right? You use the right tool for the right purpose. Chainsaws. They are extremely fast and very dangerous. There's safety equipment that you need to do. There should be some checks in your mind to make sure you're using it quickly. The reminder That chain is running around a bar at 10,000 plus RPMs a minute. It takes seconds for it to really hurt someone very quickly. And it's easy to have that happen, okay? And I am talking from experience. Know when to hire a professional. There's going to be a point you're going to look at that and say, you know what? I can't do this safely, and I need to hire someone else to do it. And we'll talk about how to do that. So, what branches should you prune? So, this is sort of John's checklist, I guess, to work through it. The first one is really look at anything dead or dying. Obviously, if it's dying, the tree does shed branches. They do not live on a tree forever. They die, they shed them. They don't continue to need their usefulness in terms of photosynthesis. They might be shaded out by other branches. So removing them is easy in the first step. Anything that appears to be overextended or weak, hanging very low or pointing straight up, those are all things that are telling me they really aren't really strongly attached. Anything that has what I call Basil sprouts, and we'll demonstrate what that is here in a minute. Basically, Basil sprouts are the ones that are growing off of the trunk of the tree, sometimes at the ground level or off exposed roots. The term water sprouts. So these are basically branches that are sprouting off of the middle of the branch. And these are those advantageous buds. And they tend to grow very rapidly, especially on things like fruit trees, have a different color almost, and they grow extremely rapidly, but generally straight up or straight down. Branches that are not attached well, that are in decline, crossing and rubbing, and those that we call have narrow angles or codominance. And we're going to talk and show you what those look like here in just a minute. So the first thing, and you can see from this diagram, again, keep in mind anything of the upper part of the tree where the branches and leaves are is called the crown or the canopy of the tree. But the red arrow is pointing to the person. The person is the target. And so if that branch failed, what would it hit? And so those are things that you need to think about. Can you move the target? How often is the target there? So a perfect example is if this is a branch that's hanging over an area where there's a picnic table, we have two choices. We prune the branch and remove it, or we move the picnic table. If it's an area like a school building or your home, you can't move them very easily. The branch needs to be removed. So obviously the dead branch, things that are broken and hanging down, you'll see the one far on the bottom right-hand side called the sucker that's coming off the root sucker. Those are common. And the reason why they're very common is many landscape trees that we plant are actually grafted on different rootstock. And so it's not uncommon for that rootstock to sucker itself. So most fruit trees are grafted trees, okay? And most landscape trees are as well. It's a way to produce them relatively quickly and efficiently and get the color or the appearance that people want. The water sprouts, as you can see, are ones that are growing straight up into the tree off of the middle of a branch, just kind of sprout up. And then things that are like rubbing and crossing, pretty easily to start seeing them and working with them. So those are just kind of the ones you prioritize right away first and be able to work it. So the other one thing to keep in mind is the way the branches are attached to the branch. So in this case here, we have two unions, okay, where two branches are coming together. And the first one where the green arrow is, or A, is got a U-shaped union. That U-shaped union has the bark pushed up. You can see it's almost sort of a U or almost a small W. That has strong connections above and below. And so the branch union should be strong. The B one that you see there, which is the V shape, or basically what happens is you can see that the branch angles are very tight. And inside basically is there's ingrown bark. So it's not uncommon for a branch with these V-shaped unions, and I hate to use the word, but I call them crotches, okay, where that V-shaped union or crotch exists, where the branch can be split. And that's where you sometimes will see the splitting of large trees or branches. So this should be one of the things we should be trying to minimize, the V-shaped unions, and not worry about the U-shaped ones as much. So here is an example of where this one should be. It shouldn't say avoid the U-shaped union. It should say avoid the V-shaped union. So that's my error. But basically, here is a beautiful pin oak that was planted in the development. Looks really great. Not an inexpensive tree to put in there, but you can see that there's two main stems right in there, are codominant stems. And what has happened is that tree should never have been planted there in the first place. So when you're going to buy a tree or look at a nursery tree, always look for one that has a main stem. So this tree is going to have a problem. Our problem right now is we can't prune one of those branches off because we would violate the golden rule, right? We within half of the living branches at any one time. So what's going to happen is over time, we're going to have to try to minimize this, but we may never eliminate this codominant situation. Here's the goal. So this is interesting. Like I said, same development, but just down the street, same tree, but you notice that it has a strong central leader with one dominant stem. And yeah, there's some pruning we're going to have to do, but it has the structure that we really want. So we're starting out in a bonus situation. Obviously, when we have developments, trees always struggle because soils are compacted, all those other things. So it's just really good to have a tree that has a strong leader. So you've got something to work with immediately. So I talked about don't fear the reaper. Well, I'm going to use the forester term, don't fear the topper, okay? Or fear the topper, I should say. So topping trees is where basically you kind of round over the canopy of the tree. You reduce its size by pruning all the branches back, and it's not done by pruning back to another limb. It's just like rounding it over. What this does is it basically will now force this tree to try to sprout, and there's little sprouts coming up on it to kind of to get that photosynthesis back. And so there's going to be sprouts, it'll be weakly attached. And in fact, it's just the whole concept is it's not really an attractive tool. Oftentimes you see people in this technique if they want their view. So we're going to talk about how we could have changed this one. But this was a senior living facility, and the trees were really important to the senior citizens. They liked them out there, gave them shade, and they decided to reduce the size. And when I asked them why they did it, because this is after the fact, of course, they were afraid that the trees would fall on the property. Well, the problem we have is if you look at tree 1, 2, and 3 all the way around, they've got all kinds of branching structures in here that really need to be worked. And in fact, the whole weight of the tree is really still there. So this one was, my option was to recommend that they remove them all and start over. And that's really what we ended up doing, but it was a costly mistake because I had to have it done twice. So again, topping is something to fear. So if you ever have a tree service or something, I always tell people, I can tell you a professional arborist in a moment, they don't use the term tree topping. They don't put it in their ads. They don't do it because what that does is that will create a problem for you over and over again, all right? So we're gonna take you on a little demo. Now, the advice we want to give you on this demo is this is going to go to a a YouTube that I did a couple years ago for the Envirohouse, kind of a pre-COVID thing. So I wasn't wearing my mask at the time. Um, I am going to advise you that since we're working off laptops, that you need to turn your volume on your computer up as high as it can be. So it is, can be a little quiet, but we really will do our best to help you. But please turn the sound up. I'm going to play the video. And then what we'll talk about here once we come back is I'll go over the tools a little bit more. Okay. So we're going to give it a try. It should work okay.
Okay, and when we start that, I will put the link in it so you can get it later and hear it again. I'm not getting any volume at all. If nobody else is getting volume, maybe you just need to talk along with it for right now.
Okay, it looks like we're not getting any volume. So we're going to talk our way through this one, Janda. Okay.
Okay.
I think that's the best thing. We apologize. The link for the video is in there. We've done, these things are always a blast when you try them, but it doesn't always work. But this YouTube is Envirohouse YouTube. So why don't I just go to the next slide, Janda, and I will talk my way through it. Okay.
Okay, you can probably show it and talk little bits on it, but if you want to just go to the next slide, that's fine too.
Yeah, I'm gonna quit sharing a sec so people can see me. Okay, all right. So I think what we're going to do is we're really going to talk about the pruning tools. And we went through the techniques. I apologize. Technology is technology. And it would have been great to be able to show you, and maybe in a future Envirohouse we'll be able to do it. As I said before, the most important part is having your eye protection, glasses, or sometimes the safety goggles. The next thing is really the gloves. And you can see my gloves are ready for replacement, used quite a bit this year. But the basic concept is I really like the leather type gloves. Leather gloves are really great. They're light. They allow you to have good grip. But the best part about it is 99% of the time, unless it's a chainsaw, you can't cut through them very easily. You'll find holes on my gloves where I've tried to do it by mistake, but they really work great. So the first thing is really leather gloves is just sort of a must with using tools. We're going to also tell you that when you go buy tools, don't go to the bargain bin, okay? You really want to buy a good pair or get a set of loaner tools if you want to go to the tool library where you are actually getting good quality tools. So companies that I have used and like, I like the Corona, I like the Felco. Those are the two very common ones that are used, but there are many others that are also very good and affordable. The part I want to tell you is you can't be thrifty when you buy tools. You need to buy tools that are going to last. So an investment in $30 to $40 in a pair of hand pruners will last you a lifetime. The same with pruning saws that we'll talk about here in a minute. So there are really two types of hand pruners. I hope this will work okay. You'll see there are some like here on my, I'm going to say my left, okay, which is These are anvil ones where there is a flat edge and the branch is coming down, okay? The other type are these that are scissor-like, which are these right in here, or bypass pruners. The two types work okay, but what this one, anvil one with that flat edge, what it does is it squeezes the branch to cut. So we are damaging the cambium region that's trying to seal. So I do not use or recommend the anvil pruners. I use those that are the bypass or scissor type, just like that. These types are good for up to a ½ inch. When you start trying to ream on the branch and work really hard, you've got a tool that's too small for the task. So keep that in mind. The second part about these types is they do come in what I'm going to call like lopper shape, which gives you a little bit more leverage. They're both anvil type and the scissor or bypass one. Again, the bypass pruners are the best. Okay, so I'm going to show you probably my tool, which is not the cleanest today, but that's the bypass Corona ones that I have. These make great gifts, by the way. If you have a gardener or arborist tree person in your life. Okay, so those are up to a ½ inch in size. Pruning saws come in many different types, but I happen to like those that are folding saws, like this one right here. Pull it back a little bit. There it is. They are double tooth, what they call razor saws. These are really sharp, hence the gloves. But what they do is you prune the branch on the back cut. So as you're pruning, it cuts this way. So it's not cutting this way, but on the back cut. They're double tooth, very sharp, okay? And they work really great for two reasons. One is they allow you to get into those areas that you're trying to prune and work. They're generally fairly steady and strong. And the other part is they're actually very fast. So this one is my favorite of all. This is a Samurai one, but there are Coronas, there are Felco saws, there are many different types. This is the Corona version of it, okay? Each one has a little different thing, the way they lock or twist. Sometimes the handles can be a little different. It just varies. The longer the saw doesn't necessarily mean the best. I think it just depends on how you feel. Sometimes the smaller version is nice. The thing I like about the saws that are like this is they can be folded up and put in your pocket. You're not having that sharp edge around. Again, they work great in the concept here of the being able to make your undercut, your overcut, and then making your cut by your branch collar. So these work great up to a branch of about 2 inches in diameter. So when you start working a branch with a handsaw over 2 inches, you're going to be really working hard because it's a lot of weight and it takes a while to get through all that wood. So when you start getting to those types of things, you are talking about power saws. And power saws, as we talked about, things like there are electric chainsaws, there are now electric battery chainsaws, which are really cool. And then just obviously chainsaws themselves. Again, very fast, very quick. And they're really there to kind of get the branch, a large branch removed. But you should follow the same technique, the 3 steps. Go outside, find that branch collar, go 3 inches away, 3 to 6 inches away, undercut to relieve the tension, take the overcut to take the weight off, and then find your branch collar. Follow that same path, okay? So I'm gonna go back and I wanna talk to just, go ahead, Jana.
Before you go further, the tools to put in the chat are Felco, Corona. What about Fiskars?
Fiskars is fine, yep.
Okay, any others I should add?
There's this one, like I said, my saw is called a Samurai saw, which I think is really a cool term. That is the brand, Samurai.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. SAMURI?
Yep, exactly. Yep. All right, so I'm going to go back to share the screen here for a sec. Let's see if I can get this to come up. Share. And we're going to go away. Okay. So now what I wanted to talk about is the use of ladders. And I have discovered and really comfortable to remember about a concept of staying off of a ladder. And there are places that it seems like the branch is just so high up, you can't reach it from the ground anymore. But at the same time, it doesn't seem like, is there some way I can do this without hiring a professional? And there are what are called pole pruners. They're like telescopic poles, like this one in the far left-hand corner. They've come better and better as time goes along. So you can see this one in the upper right-hand corner that's extending up to 20 feet. The thing about when you extend it is it's a little less stable, but it will follow that same pattern of the 3-step cut. It's a little harder to get to that branch collar, but it is a very effective tool. I don't really have any one brand of pole pruners that I use. I think you can find them at any home and garden store. You can find them online. So they're about anywhere from 60 to $100. So if you have branches that you want to prune that are up high, it's really a pretty handy tool. Some of them are actually interchangeable where you can add things like cleaning your upper windows and a whole bunch of other things. So look at those things, but they basically have that razor saw concept at the end where you're pulling on the back cut. And then the basic concept is that the pole extends out. Power pruners are ones that are basically chainsaws on the end of a telescopic pole. And that allows, again, to do the job up and away, but the best part is on the ground. So there are gas-powered battery ones, electric ones, and they work really effectively, again, to get those branches up higher. And again, the larger the branch, the more work it takes. So cutting a large branch with a pole pruner is a lot of effort on the upper body. But with a power pruner, it maybe makes it a little easier and more effective. So power pruners and pole pruners are really good investment if you plan to be pruning your trees over time. It works. It's a savings. So I always call this success. So when you have properly pruned your branch, it says in this one, heal, but that's not true. Remember, trees seal. And so you can see the callus tissue growing around that branch. And you can always know that that means the tree is sealing when it's that donut shape, pretty much circular all the way around. Chanda, do we have a polling question you want to do?
I think the only other one is whether they have used the tree coupons, unless you.
Yes, that's the one.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Let's do that one next, and then we'll talk about the programs and do a quick review.
All right. Let me get that up.
Okay. We really apologize that the video didn't work, unfortunately, but you can check it out on your own.
And while that's, while we're finishing up on those and adding more things to the chat, I have set up the settings on the Zoom so that you should be able to copy. I don't know if you can download or if you just have to copy it, but you should be able to get that information. And if you can't, I will put my email in there so you can let me know and I can email you the links that are in the chat.
Okay.
Okay, so most of the people have not participated in the tree coupon program. So do you want to run over those guidelines again, just so people know what they can do? You're not limited to the city of Tacoma, how many trees you can get.
You bet. I sure can.
Okay.
Sure can. Okay. So So I'm going to stop sharing while you're doing that. Okay. All right. So let me tell you about the concept of the tree coupon program, how it works, and how you're eligible. So it's a partnership between the City of Tacoma Environmental Services, Urban Forestry Team, Tacoma Power, and the Puyallup Watershed Initiative. And we all saw the value of encouraging people to plant trees in our communities here in Pierce County. So you have to be a Pierce County resident. That's the first thing. And what the city started was a coupon program where people worked with a local nursery and got a discount when they bought their trees on site. Tacoma Power joined the program along with the watershed about 4 years ago, and the coupon value is now up to $30 off. And you can get up to 3 trees. There is some limitations. The limitation number 1 is you have to work with a participating nursery. So you have to get the coupon first, apply for it. It gets mailed to you by the City of Tacoma Environmental Services. You take that coupon and you go to 7 participating nurseries. I should hold up my hands right here. 7, okay? And they will then honor the coupon on site, okay? So it's like it's a discount right away. So you can't get the coupon at the nursery, have to apply for it. And we'll put that site where you can do that here in a sec. The second part, of course, you're up to 3 trees per coupon. So it's a $90 value on 3 trees. They are intended to be shade trees or conifers or evergreens, our main goal. The main goal is because we're trying to improve the canopy of the city, increase the city's tree canopy, kind of the climate change, heat island concept. The other part is more trees obviously protect our soils. They take up nutrients and other things so that there's less going into our watershed. And then the third part really is why Tacoma Power is interested is we're seeing, I'm going to call an alarming trend of people installing air conditioning. So obviously, not all of us have ever had air conditioning here in the Northwest in the past because it doesn't get normally that hot. But this summer, I think we all remember the 100-some degree days. Well, we're watching the meters for many people just go crazy in terms of putting on AC units. And so the use of trees in the right location, whether it's shading the AC unit itself or shading parts of your home, if it's can reduce the use of your AC and minimize that power load, because obviously we don't want to charge people for more power than they need, because the majority of time people use power in Tacoma Power is either for their heating or for lighting. And that's generally obviously when there's not any shade needed at that time. So just trying to look at ways in a long range to try to help people reduce their power use and help people, be comfortable. All right, so I'm going to go back to sharing the screen here a sec. So this is my quick sales pitch, a Tacoma Power Conservation Manager. There are a number of different places and things that you can do as a Tacoma Power customer to save energy. There's opportunities for rebates and zero interest loans for things like heating, water heating, insulation, and windows, and other ways that we can help you save energy. Same is true for businesses. So this is mytpu.org/rebates and mytpu.org biz rebates. If you have a business and you're looking at things, we can help you there. And then the shade tree coupon is at this location. Again, it's a joint program with the city, the Puyallup watershed, where we're all working together to help. And basically what our partnership in doing is it went from just city of Tacoma outside to all Tacoma Power customers and people that are residents of Pierce County. All right. So I think, and I want to leave you my contact information. Many times people ask me, hey, I have further question, touch base with you. Here's my emails that you can do. The general concept, and I do get asked this occasionally, do I come out and look at people's trees? Occasionally I do it. I don't do it for money. I don't do it as a service for Tacoma Power. It's after hours. But I do help people occasionally look at their tree problems or recommend people that can do it for you. So feel free to email me and I can see what's possible. One of the things that's very helpful in today's technology world is photos or scans of what your tree condition or concern is. It's amazing when somebody shows me a picture and I can see looking at the tree pretty quickly what things can be done. And sometimes we can do all this right online. I can respond back and say, here's where I would prune the tree. Here's what I would do, or here's what I believe is the tree's problem. So certainly feel free at any time to email me either at my office address there, email is cityoftacoma.org, or my home, and we'll try and help you provide assistance and give you ideas. So let's take a look real quick. I'm going to look at the chat.
I just put all of those links in the chat, I think.
Okay, all right.
And I repeated the tool library. I repeated your information. I have Tacoma Power, how to save.
Right. And then also you have the pruning guide from the USDA Forest Service, how to prune trees. That's probably the best one. If we were all in person and I had a handout, folks, that is the one that I find to be the best. Okay.
And we have the names of the tools that you recommend.
Yep.
I've added my contact information if you need further assistance with this. And the upcoming webinars, Pruning Fruit Trees, is on the 30th. And then we will do an overview on mason bees on November 6th, so that when it's time to get mason bees in the spring, because they go quickly, you'll be ready, you'll have your house and you'll know what you need to do to have mason bees to pollinate your fruit trees.
So there is one question that looks like Julie Murphy has sent. So can we prune today and in the rain? The answer is yes. So the one part in the video that we weren't able to demonstrate is you wanted to know the one time not to prune. And the time not to prune is when the tree is breaking bud. So when the leaves are just starting to come out, the buds are swelling, the bark is extremely tender and tears really easily. So I always tell people, don't prune your trees from roughly April 15th to about June 1st. That's really bud break, really easy for the branch to be damaged. But any other time of the year is great. I really like doing it in the fall or the winter. The weather can be fun, in the rain, that's okay. Yes, you can do it in the rain. But the basic concept is it allows me to see what I'm pruning. I'm concentrating on the branches and not kind of on the leaves. And I can see what my next steps are. So I always think about, I guess, an arborist and a forester always thinks about what the tree will look like in 20 years. So I'm always 3 steps ahead. I'm thinking if I take branch A, where am I at branch D and things of that sort. So yes, you can do it now. And following the 3 steps would be great. Okay.
And there's another question there on planting in the strip.
Yeah. Okay, I want to plant a tree in the strip between the sidewalk and on the north side of my home. So if you go to the cityoftacoma.org/tree site, that's the urban forestry website, there are recommendations on what trees that they recommend for planting between the sidewalk and the curb. The city of Tacoma actually has a permit. It's a no-cost permit, but you need to apply for it. It's easy to do online. They will give you recommendations. The number one thing to think about in terms of the trees between the sidewalk and the curb is underground utilities. So you need to do the one call to make sure that you are not going to be digging into a power line, gas line, cable TV, all those wonderful things that run underneath. So definitely check out the city site. But anytime you dig in the ground, even in your own yard, it's really a great idea to call one call to make sure you get your underground utilities located.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
at 811.
It is, I think, yes, correct. Yep, correct, 811. Okay,
And then also you might want to check online, check the Grit City Tree Program. I
right.
don't think they're giving those out now. I think, isn't that,
I think the applications are still being received.
are they?
Yeah, but again, the concept is that is not individual trees, but a group of trees that a neighborhood or a neighborhood block is working on. So you need to
Oh,
get support from others. It's not a one-on-one type of thing, okay? Somebody's asked the question, Linda Donovan, can I use a power reciprocating saw on the thicker branches? Yes, you can. There are tools like that. It's not, what a reciprocating saw is, basically the saw blade is moving up and down, kind of that type of way. The part I'm going to tell you is you follow the same 3-step process. Undercut, overcut, remove the weight, find the branch collar, and prune it. So the answer is yes. Making sure you're really careful with protecting your hands and your feet and your legs. Let's see, the next one, okay, is that one to today. Okay.
so somebody got a dogwood from one of the programs. I assume that was the Grit City Tree Program.
It could be from the coupon program too.
Mhm.
See, new messages are below. Sorry, I need to go to the bottom. From Grit City, Julie says. Okay, good. Okay, and 811. Yep.
So,
Okay.
okay, you should be able to copy, before we close this, you should be able to copy the chat information. If you are missing it, check cityofTacoma.org/EnviroHouse or /workshops. The EnviroHouse contact information is on there, and you can reach me, email me, and we'll get this information to you. So if we have no other questions, I think we are concluded, and we will end the webinar. And thank you all for being here, and thank you, John, for presenting. And John's information.
Thank you. I'm glad we were able to do it. Yep, I look forward to coming in the spring. Hopefully the new normal will be there by that time, and we'll be able to do this in person and demonstrate it. But feel free to contact me or email me in any way. If you have questions, I will look forward to it and talking and sharing information. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you all for being here. Have a great day outside pruning today, and be safe. Okay, we will end the webinar and see you maybe next week for fruit tree pruning. Bye.